Hi guys, thank you for being here today. We have a very special guest, Luis Galdamez, co-owner of Baltrion, and also he's a client of us. We did a project for him and his family. We're gonna talk about today about the experience working with us and also about finance, wealth, and how people can invest, or how entrepreneurs can, plan tax the best way possible, to help also grow their business. Luis, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself and tell about?
Yeah. So my name is Luis Galdamez. Like Mel said, I've been in the financial services industry going on 23 years. Started as a planner, went into investments, and been doing it for a very long time. As Mel said, I'm a co-owner of Baltrion, so a comprehensive financial services firm. We help entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and business executives reach what we call the work optional phase. And like Mel said, Mel's a client of ours, and I'm a client of Mel's as well. He did some really good work for us. So I'm really excited to be here in the podcast.
Thank you, Luis. Yeah, we are happy to have you here to share your experience, working with athletes, entrepreneurs, business owners, and also to tell about the experience, how was it working with Mel's Builders. We did the ADU for you and also the outdoor of your house. So for us, it was a great experience working with you. What will you say? How was your experience working with us?
It was great, right? The idea, and I remember when I first thought of maybe I should get an ADU. So at the time I was working from home and I was working in my garage, and I was like, okay, I need a space. I need a bigger space. And so I thought, maybe let's get a back house, maybe an ADU, let's do something. So the first person I called was you. I said, hey, Mel, I know you do this. And my area of expertise is financial services. I know that better than everyone else. Investment management, when it comes to construction, not my area of expertise. So we outsource. So the first person I talked to about it was Rob, and Rob's like, hey, you got to talk to Mel. I'm like, yeah, let me talk to Mel. He came out, we kind of measured stuff in the yard, talked to my wife, and we decided, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. But the idea for the ADU wasn't to rent, it was for us. And so from the onset, we wanted to have something that was a little different because it was going to be for the family.
Yeah, and that's very important, to know what is the purpose of the project. And for you, it was, to spend time for you and the family working, and then at the same time, having fun with the kids on the weekend or the family. So, and then for other clients, it's more like investment, right?
Yeah.
And what will you say, is the most important part for an owner that is thinking to build? This is in general, right? What they need to pay attention when they are thinking to hire a general contractor?
The idea is you want someone experienced and you want someone that you can trust, especially as you're getting into an area where you're not the subject matter expert. I'm used to being the subject matter expert when clients come to us. So when I go to someone else, I expect them to know it better than anyone. And the trust is key. So I think when someone's thinking of creating a back house, an EDU, like you said, first think through, what is the purpose? Is it to create income? Is it for the family? And for us, that was a key. It's my office, but I also wanted it to be a family space. So we had it open to the pool. And then from the beginning, that was important. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you do business with someone you trust and someone who has a good track record. And for me, we knew you for a while. You were a client. I've seen your work before, and you have a lot of integrity. So it's very easy for me to make that decision to work with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And what about the challenges? Do you remember any challenges like, during the design process or the construction that you can share? And, because that's part of the construction run, there is always something that unexpected.
Yeah. This whole process was new to me. So when I spoke to you, then, You kind of walked me through it. The next step was to speak to an architect to design it. So you put me in contact with someone, we met with the person, and we started looking at the plans, and we started telling them what we envisioned, what we wanted. And from that point, just understanding the different steps. So once it was designed, then, okay, well, it's got to be submitted to the city, it's got to get approved. And then all the whole different steps for me it was new from the beginning, but now going back and seeing it made a whole lot of sense. The great thing with you guys is that you got the work done quickly, right? And there's still, because in the area where I live, people are building, and I see projects that were still in the process when you got started. So back to your original question, making sure that when you hire someone to do the work, you got to make sure that they have the manpower. You have to make sure that they have the ability to do it quickly. Because for me, I'm extremely busy. I have children. One of the biggest points was to make sure that it got done on time, and you did.
Yeah, that's very important, you know, because time is money. And when you're living in the middle of construction, it's very stressful. And clients, that's what they get upset, because if they don't get the project done quick, you know, it's just like, especially when you have kids, it just, everybody, you know, it goes crazy because it's not easy living in the middle of construction. But so going back to Baltrium, what inspired you, or how you got started on the financial industry?
Yeah, I got started right out of school. So I went to UC Santa Barbara, graduated in 2003, and got right into finance. Interestingly, because I don't come from a background of people who are in the industry, I had to learn. So I had to learn how it all worked, and it took a long time for me to figure it out. But I'm quick. I'm a quick learner, and I was able to go get the right designations, and then realize, okay, in this industry, there's a lot of people who call themselves a financial advisor, a financial planner, but they're really selling. They're selling for commission. They're not providing the right advice. They're not a fiduciary. They're in it for themselves. And I had to navigate that. I didn't know. And so through time, once I got my designations, I ended up meeting my business partner, Rob. This is going on 8 years or so. And when I met him, I was working at a company in Pasadena, and he was looking to do mergers and acquisition deals. So with this RIA, registered investment advisory company, and the whole thing fell apart. But he and I connected, and he told me he was looking to build an investment committee. And I had just gotten my CFA, which is a Chartered Financial Analyst, the highest designation when it comes to security analysis, portfolio creation. And so he and I hit it off. I jumped ship, went from that company with Rob, and at the time it was at Newport Beach. So we were in Newport Beach. We were helping ultra high net worth families, and eventually moved the company. We're in Long Beach for a little bit, and then went to the West Side and Century City, helping families. And at the point when the company was sold by Rob, we were helping ultra high net worth families. So we had minimums of 15 million of investable assets. We would coordinate with the family's trusted advisors, so CPAs, estate attorneys, and we were doing the asset management and financial planning. So a family office. But what we found, it was very disjointed working with the CPAs or the estate attorneys. And we figured, in order for us to execute on our goal of getting families to that work optional phase as quickly as possible, we needed to have everyone in-house. So we created Valtreon and started with what we know best: investment management, financial planning. Then we moved on, created a lending company where we partner with the bank to be able to do single family residential loans. We have an insurance unit where we're able to do insurance, the right type of insurance. I don't know if we get into that or not, but there's certain, type of insurances that make sense, some that don't make sense. And of course, we created the tax division. A lot of entrepreneurs, they work really hard for their money, and they want to be able to keep as much of that money as possible. So now we're able to help them. The tax code has a lot of great benefits for entrepreneurs, and a lot of people aren't doing it right. In that industry, what we found is that a lot of CPAs, and people work with CPAs and they say, hey, I have a CPA and he does my taxes. He's probably doing something great. The challenge is that a lot of the CPAs are doing tax compliance. And what that means is that they're making sure they file taxes, they do it with no errors, they do it on time, and that they roughly estimate the quarterly payments. If they do that, they kind of pat themselves on the back, and then they go to the entrepreneur. They might say, hey, Mel, by the way, we filed your taxes. It's all set. You have to pay the government $200,000 because of the taxes and that you didn't pay, that you have to pay. And that doesn't sit well with entrepreneurs. The CPAs typically will say something, well, Mel, you should be happy that you're paying the government $200,000 because that means you're making money.
Right.
And the truth is, there's more thoughtful ways of being able to do it. And so we created that unit. So we have different things, ultimately getting families to that work optional phase.
So in your experience, where do you see the biggest mistakes from entrepreneurs or athletes? What is the biggest mistake that they make with money?
The biggest mistake is not having a plan. And so what happens with entrepreneurs, what happens with athletes is that they start making money and you start focusing on money. And it's fine because you get into a phase where you start growing the company quickly and you just want to focus, how can I get more money? How can I do more? But without the proper planning of what are you doing in the first place? So for us, our philosophy is very simple when it comes to money. We believe that people accumulate money not for the sake of having money, but rather what that money allows them to do for them and their family. So we always start with that in mind. We put the business aside. What does someone want to do for their family, the lifestyle they want, the restaurants you want to go eat, where they want a vacation, the homes they'd like to own. Then we put a number around that and we say, okay, you want to get over here and you're here, that's okay. How can we get you from here to here in the fastest way possible? And so without that plan, people don't know what they're doing. And I ask entrepreneurs, when we work with a lot of successful people and even people who've done really well, we start asking them, well, why are you working? When they can't answer a simple question like that.
Yeah, and that's very important, to have the plan, the goal, where you want to be. Because usually, for example, in my experience, that's what I did with you guys on the beginning, right? The roadmap to see what we have and what we want to achieve in life, right? And then according to that, you plan around and to be able to buy a house, buy the car that you want and all of that. So it's very important. And because a lot of people now are working or thinking or talking about the generational wealth, right? Yeah. What that means for you.
Generational wealth, it's funny because people throw that concept around. And when you start asking, what does that mean? They really can't define it. It's really simple. Generational wealth is how do you accumulate enough money that passes to the second, third, fourth, fifth generation. The challenge, though, is that people don't realize statistically when money's made by that second generation, the children, if those children are not educated, that money gets squandered away. And if they happen to be lucky by that second generation that it continues, by the third one, it's almost all gone. And so generational wealth means you have to make money, but you have to be able to keep it and grow the money. And that requires a lot of financial literacy, which unfortunately in our Latino community, unfortunately in the country, there's a lack of that.
Do you think that need to be taught in schools?
Yeah, it definitely should. The challenge, it's not. It's not. I've been doing this for 23 years. And when I was in high school, I took a very basic economic course. I didn't understand personal finances. I was lucky enough to start at school to understand economics and then get into finance and get into personal finance, understand business, but we're not taught that. So we have to take it on ourselves to be able to do it. And the challenge is, like you said earlier, time is money. The earlier you get started, the easier it is to create that generational wealth. The challenge is that most people don't learn, or if they learn in their 40s, in their 50s. And by then you've given up so much time that it takes much longer or harder work to be able to achieve that, what we call magic number, which is the lump sum of money you need to then cash flow and pay for your ideal lifestyle.
And what will you say will be the best way for people to change that mindset, or in your case, what was it that helped you shift the mindset to become successfully financial successful?
Yeah, for me personally, it was just understanding and I'm very analytical by nature and I observe a lot. And for me, I was looking at people who were successful and people who were not. I'll share with you when I started my first job, it was out in Irvine for the brokerage house for Washington Mutual. It was called WMF Financial Washington Mutual. Of course, went under during the Great Recession.
Yeah, I remember.
And so I remember, and I was 21 at the time, I was looking around the company and saying, okay, these people have been here for 7 years, 8 years. Do I see myself being in that position? Because I didn't know what they were making, but I could kind of tell. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be in that position. I want to be in the position of these other people. What are they doing? What have they done? What can I do to get myself in that place? So really, you need to be able to go in there and do the work. You have to get designations. The great thing about now, Mel, which is different than back then, is we didn't have social media. We didn't have these programs where you could learn. So now what you find, and we have the Beltram Academy, people can come in and learn what they need to learn in a very, very short period of time versus having to learn a lot. When I went to school, I ended up graduating in 3 years with 3 different degrees. So I was in, out, but even then I took classes that I personally didn't care about. I had to take music classes. I had to take art history classes, which were nice, but it just doesn't help me become a better entrepreneur. So now you have programs where you can jump in. You talked about the entrepreneurship roadmap earlier, which Rob went to a good MBA school, went to Anderson, UCLA. And what he says is after those 4 years, the most valuable thing he got was this entrepreneurship roadmap. Well, we teach that to people right away. You can come in a few weeks, understand it, and bypass the $150,000, $200,000 of tuition, but more importantly, get in there and get things done much faster.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was like, wow, when I went through the roadmap, and it's crazy all the information that you guys have there, even though still people think that it's hard, because now with AI and social media, everyone wants to be successful. They want to win quickly. They don't want to put the work.
They don't.
And so what separates family, successful families with family that get stuck financial? What do you think is the difference?
Yeah, a few things. I do think the most important thing is taking action. What I found is that for our clients, we have clients that are multimillionaires and different industries. We have people who are landscapers who are extremely well, and you would see them on the street, you would know that they're worth a lot of money. Then you have successful entrepreneurs. You have executives who work at private equity companies that exited. And what we found is the one characteristic that they all share is that they take action. They have an idea and they go out and they're not scared. They go out, they do it. If it doesn't work, then they come back to the drawing board and they do it again, but they do it thoughtfully, right? They have a plan. Here's what I'm looking to do. It may not work, but they go in there and do it. What I found is that people who are not successful, they stay in their head, or they're always so scared to fail that they'll never even try. And that's the number one thing, is you have to go out and do it. But of course, you have to educate yourself. You have to know what you're doing. You have to find a competitive edge. You want to go in there and you want to be able to compete where you're going to win. So if, for example, I'm not a tall person, I'm not going to try to get into the NBA. It's not going to work, right? But I realize I'm very analytical. I realize that I can find something and I could see how it works. And because I'm numbers driven, I can put plans and I can explain it simply to people. So that's what I do better than most. And people need to focus that. So when people are wanting to come into the industry and they ask me, Luis, I want to get into what you guys are doing. I want to work with ultra high net worth families. I'm like, okay, what are you going to do differently? Because you're competing against us.
Yeah.
How are you going to win? You have to have a plan. And again, so you have to have a plan, you have to have a competitive edge, and you have to take action. And then if you make a mistake, get back in there and go. It's really not that difficult. And the good thing about it is that you can make money in anything. You just have to find out what you like, because as an entrepreneur, and you being one, you know that you work long hours. You're on the clock every single time. I work all the time. When I go on vacation, I'm always on. My phone's on. People are calling me.
Yeah.
Business doesn't stop. And it's okay because I love it. I like what I do, and it's not really work for me. So you have to find what you do well, have a plan, take action.
Yeah, that's the most important part, because like working for yourself or to build a company, you have to work 24/7, because it's just a matter of hours, right? Because people think that you can build a successful business just working 8 hours a day, and that's not true. If you want to win, you have to work meanwhile everybody else is sleeping or partying.
Yeah.
What would you say is the habits that rich people, millionaires have? You deal a lot with wealthy people. What do you see on them that is different from, our community or regular people that doesn't want to put the work?
One of the biggest things is that they're very optimistic by nature. So as an entrepreneur, you have to have a positive mindset. And if you don't have a positive mindset, you would never start a business, because you're going to think it's going to fail. What ends up happening is that there's a lot of people that they focus on the negative. And so I see this all the time when I see entrepreneurs. And unfortunately, a lot of times it happens with family members. You tell family members, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. And they're like, well, that's not going to work. Why are you going to start your own business? Why don't you just go work for someone else? They again, it's mindset. Mindset is so important. And understanding that you can do something better than someone else is key. Now, you have to be a realist too. You can't think, I'm going to go build this multi-billion-dollar company from one day to the next. But over time, you certainly can. And we've worked with very successful individuals, and they all have their different time frames. We were just talking to a New York client of ours. He's 29, sold a company for 10 plus million. It's already starting a new one. Young guy, just going, right? And when we speak to him, like, okay, you can tell they have that ability, but more importantly, they take that action and they're wanting to go quickly. They're hungry.
So how important is discipline related to income?
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important because we're all going to fail. You can't win every single time, and that's okay. You got to go in there and you have to go and do it. For me, I mean, I came to the States when I was 5, and LA is my home. So I'm a very huge Lakers fan. I love Kobe. I've always learned from him. And he says it, Jordan, pick whoever you want. Any successful athlete in any sport, they're in there and they're doing it over and over and over and over, just practicing the most fundamental pieces. And that's why you have to enjoy it. If it's work, you're not going to want to do it. If it's more like a game, if it's something, a passion you have, then you're just getting better every single day. And Kobe always said, when you go to sleep and you think about your day, can you tell yourself that you got a little bit better than the day before? If you do that over and over and over, those little incremental wins are going to exponentially put you ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. And where do you think beginners can start investing today?
The great thing now is that you can open up a brokerage account anywhere. So back in the 1990s, to open an account, you had to go to the bank. It was a whole process. People didn't know, the information wasn't readily available. Now you can get information anywhere. You can open up you can go open up any account. Now, again, you have to have a plan, what type of account, because you have to be a little bit more thoughtful. But even if you don't know, you're going to learn by doing. And so if you want to open up a brokerage account, you can go to schwab.com, Fidelity, there's E-Trade, Interactive Brokers. Open a brokerage account. You can open it under your name. If you qualify for a Roth IRA, that might be a good way to get started. Open the account, put money in. The Roth, of course, has an annual limit. Other accounts, you can put as much as you want, but you can get started with as little as $100, Mel. There's no excuse for anyone. Go in there, you can buy an ETF that tracks the S&P 500, the 500 biggest companies in the US, and learn. Over time, then yes, you can get into how do you create a real portfolio. The problem is people are wanting to know, what's that next stock that I can invest in now that's going to make a lot? What's that next Nvidia? What's that next Micron? What's that next Apple back when it was taking off? Just go in there and start investing. Over time, the power of compounding is really going to help.
So what will you say will be the safest or one of the best long-term investment that people can do? Like you say, with $100, right? You can go right now for a regular dinner on the weekend because prices are so high right now. Yeah, you will spend $100. So easy, yeah. So what will you say?
The first thing you want to do is invest in yourself. And so right now you can get in. I talked about the Valtron Academy. There's other places you can go get courses. There's no excuse. Investing in yourself will be the best investment that you can make. The great thing is that it won't cost much, won't take much time. Once you start investing in yourself, you want to start using the power of compounding. If you're young, you can put a little bit of money and you can make a lot of money. For my kids, for example, and maybe we can get into this at some point, I'm a small business owner as well. So I have my kids on payroll. My kids, I'm paying them now. I mathematically calculated how much money I need to put in so that they can have $2.5 million by the time they're 60. Not a lot of money to be able to do it. Yeah, that's how you build generational wealth.
Yeah,
power of compounding. And the thing for me is that when my kids have children, I'm going to be much further along and I can fund theirs. But the key here is that financial literacy. My kids now are understanding the stock market. They're understanding the economy. Most grown-ups don't even know.
Yeah. And, I'm also a student of Valtron Academy. So every Tuesday there is a live Zoom. It's 11:30 Pacific time. So there is always a new topic, right? Every week. Even you guys ask the students, what would you like to go over the following week or the following month, which is amazing. All the information, because it's real-time information, right? It's not something that is being recorded and you can see it like 2 years from now, or it's information that was like last year. No, it's happening in the moment, right?
Absolutely.
And if you don't have the opportunity to go live, you can watch it like in 48 hours, I believe, or something like that. It's already there. So it's still real-time information, and I love it. And I really enjoy, and I learned a lot working with you guys. That's how I met Rob, during COVID. And here I am, a few years later, working with you guys. And it's been amazing working with you.
Yeah, and Rob and I were just talking earlier. He was on the Charles Payne show. He does that every couple of weeks. Last time he was on there, he talked about a company, Snow, S-N-O-W. Right now, after hours up 36%. Rob just talked about it to the Academy members. Again, taking action. Those who said, hey, maybe this makes sense in my portfolio, it's up high just in, after hours today. So for people who take action, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's the good thing, and it's the most important part, because that's the difference if you do something or not. Because if you only think about doing something, it's gonna go nowhere. It will go nowhere. You have to take action. That's the most important part. What do you think, or what is the investments that you see now that people are putting more money into, or what will be, the new trends or sectors that you will say that is something that people will need to look up and pay attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, the theme in technology is big. You talked a little bit about AI, right? There's a huge shift in what's happening in the economy right now. And companies that are being able to deliver in this sector are doing extremely well. Technology, for the most part, since 2000, have outperformed most of the other sectors. And so people are continuing to put money into these type of securities. And interestingly, with AI, I don't think people fully understand the impact of AI and what's happening, that we're living real time. So in modern human history, there's only been a few shifts. So if you think about, hundreds of years ago, you would have farmers. and you would have, the Lord, and then the people working the land. And so it's agricultural. That's the way it was for hundreds of years. And then it went from that farming to manufacturing. So the economy shifted to manufacturing, especially in the US after World War II. And people were concerned, like, well, if we go from farming to manufacturing, who's going to cultivate the land? Are we going to have enough food for everyone? Things are going to fall apart. Manufacturing is not going to work. Well, the economy went to manufacturing after World War II. Then it shifted to services. So now GDP, 2/3 of GDP is consumer consumption. You and I and everyone buying goods and services is shifted from manufacturing to services. And what we're seeing now is a shift through this whole AI piece. It's a very fundamental shift that if people don't see it or take advantage of it, they're going to be left behind. Those are 4 shifts in the last, call it 500 years. And it goes faster. Farming was for hundreds of years. Then it went to manufacturing, was for, call it 100 years. Then it went to services, 75 years. And now it's going to the AI piece, and it's going quickly. So there's a lot of money that's going to be made. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that are going to be left behind who are not adopting. So AI is key from an investment perspective, from your portfolio, also from an entrepreneur's perspective. You have to embrace these AI tools, basic tools that cost almost nothing. So you have Claude, you have ChatGPT, there's other ones that you can use, but how do you streamline your business is important, and business owners need to be thinking about that, or they're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and that's the most important is to know how to use it, right? Because if you're just spending time there, it's like social media. If you just keep scrolling, there is nothing good about it, right? Yeah. If you use it the right way, you can make a lot of money. It's a big opportunity, and AI also is a big opportunity. There is a lot of people. I think about these guys that they built an AI company. They sold, or is value like over $1 billion or something like that. Just no like humans working. It's just robot. Do you know about them?
Not that company particularly, but I do know, and Andreessen Horowitz was talking about that one person $1 billion company of being able to, again, it all comes to designing the company and then having the processes and procedures to be able to execute on it. So there's gonna be a lot of companies. Our companies, for example, Valtreon, when we started Valtreon, we thought we were gonna need maybe 100 employees. Now, as we are looking to integrate AI in the way we've been doing it, we're down to really about 25 to 30 people that we need. We don't need a lot of people. There's this flat organization concept of getting rid of middle management because you don't need them anymore. You can have management, upper management running the companies and people doing the work. And it's upper management people who are designing the companies, and it's going quick. Things are moving very quickly. So you could do it with fewer people and you can grow much faster.
Yeah. And because it's automatic, right? It's more productivity. That's the way I see it. I use, a few programs with our business, and it's helping us a lot. Unfortunately, in the construction industry, there is not many things that we can build with AI yet, but it's getting there. One day we will be able to build everything with AI. That's for sure. And people that don't pay attention, they're gonna be left behind.
Yeah, and the thing here, Mel, is that you don't have to wait for people to create it. You could be the one creating it. And so what people aren't realizing, there are going to be multi-billionaires, people who are just in their garage, people who are just having an idea because they're taking action.
Right.
You don't want to wait. The cool thing about all these tools is that you can say, Claude, I don't know how to use Claude. Show me how to do it. Here's a company I need. Walk me through it. Create a course for me to do this. There is no excuse to be able to go out and do stuff. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be making a lot of money, and a lot of people who are going to be left behind.
Yeah, that's true. And for that, people that are making a lot of money, or they're going to make a lot of money, or people that they don't own a business, but they want to build something for their kids, what are the programs that they can do, or they can build for them to be able to put money on the side, so For example, the 529.
Yeah.
That's just one that I'm mentioning to you. But what would you say that will be the programs or what they can do for them?
Yeah, so I have a passion for helping children just because that's the phase I'm in. So I have two boys, Andy and Aiden. Aiden just turned 7, Andy's 9. And like I said, I have the right accounts for them. There are different type of accounts you can open. There's a 529 savings account that's geared more towards college, being able to put money away. The great thing about this is that you put money in and it grows tax deferred. And if you take it out for qualified expenses for college, or you can actually do it now you don't have to be in college. The kids are going to private schools in their 7th, 8th, 9th grade. You can use that as well. You could use the 529 for it. But the great thing is that you take it out tax-free. So you put the money in these accounts and then you have to invest it in something. And again, you don't have to get to, it doesn't have to get complicated. You can buy an S&P 500 fund, put it in that, just let it grow. As you accumulate more money, you can get a little bit more sophisticated, but that's a simple account, a 529 account for college. You can also open up a custodial account. If you don't want to save for college, that's okay. I have a client who's a very successful boxer, and for his kids, he said, look, I just want them when they're 18 to be able to have money to do something. So I said, okay, let's calculate how much you want them to have. I reverse engineered, and he's putting the money just every month in the account, and it's growing. And we just monitor it to make sure that it's going to get to where it needs to be. Now, at that point, once the children are of age, so usually 18, although you can extend it in certain states, then they take that money, it becomes theirs. So there's pros and cons. At that point, the good thing about this account is that they can take the money out and say, I'm going to use that to start a business, or I'm going to take that money out and I'm going to use it to buy a home or for the down payment. The 529s, it has to be for college education. The good thing though is they recently passed the law where you can take up to $35,000 of money that's left over in the 529 and convert that into a Roth over a period of time, and then start funding your child's retirement. Again, compounding is key. So for me, my kids have a custodial account because I want
to charge taxes on that one. Always
the custodial account, yeah, it is taxable, but again, you don't put a whole lot of money, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And at first, a part of it is at the child's tax rate, which if they're not working, it's none. Then part of it goes then to the parents at that point. But those custodial accounts are great. So I have those for my kids because I want them to be entrepreneurs. So I have a fund that they'll be able to then use to start a business. I have their college education fund. And then I also created another 529 fund. Specifically, I calculated how much money do I need to put in today. When today, I mean, I did a few years ago, to be able to then have the $35,000 when they're 18, that then I can convert and put that for the Roth. Like I said, I've hired them under my corporation, so they have custodial Roths on top of that. And I pay them to be able to help me market my social media. So there's a lot of things you can do. And if you do it with children, the great thing is that you don't have to put a lot of money in because they're so young. You only have to put in, like for my kids, I think, I forget the calculation, maybe like it was like $7,500 that I put in for each. And by the time they're 60 is like over 1.5 million just with that.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have the right information.
You have to have the right information to be able to do it. And again, you can get information easily. You can go in there, you can ask Claude. The cool thing about Claude is that someone can listen to this podcast and say, take from this time to this time when Luis and Mel were talking about children accounts, explain it to me. Where can I go open this? Here's my situation. It'll tell you what to do.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you can also, of course, plug for the Valtron Academy, come see us and we can help you, but there's no excuse. You can get the information. The problem is people will listen and they're not going to do anything about it. They're going to say, that's a great idea. I'm going to do it. I'll do it next month. Next month, life happens. I get it. And then nothing happens. 3 years, 4 years, 10 years go by. And they're like, oh man, I should have done it a long time ago. I would have had money for my kids.
What would you say for a small business owner? What would you say that is available, where they need to pay attention or what they need to do to invest their money?
Yeah, as a small business owner, first of all, you have to make sure that you have the right entity structure. And then so you have to realize that there's a difference between the legal structure and the tax structure. How are you set up legally? If are you an LLC, you're a single member LLC, do you have a partnership? Is that LLC then taxed as an S corp, or if it's a single member LLC, you have that legal protection, but it just rolls up for tax purposes. So it's a disregarded entity. Got to make sure which one you have, right? So if you have, let's say, an LLC and it's taxed as an S corp, then there's a lot of things that you might be able to do. Low hanging fruit that people should do. We talk about the Augusta Rule quite a bit, being able to rent your personal residence to the business itself. So the cool thing about it is you can do this for up to 14 days. And I'm doing this for my side as well. And the cool thing is that
Straight 14 days, or you can do between?
yeah, you can up to 14 days.
Okay,
so you can do up to 14 days. And the thing about it has to be done properly. And so for me, when I'm doing this, I make sure that there's a business reason for it. So the IRS they're onto these things because it's talked about on social media, but people aren't doing it right. So if you're renting your personal home to your business, you have to make sure, first of all, that it's not a single member LLC or a sole proprietor, because then you're one in the same, right? If you have a business, now it's a different entity. So you're renting your personal home to the business, that's a different entity. You have to have a rental agreement. You have to make it seem as much as you can as a third party transaction, even though it's you and your own entity. So you have to have a lease agreement or a rental agreement. You then have to state how much you're renting the home. So you have to be thoughtful about it. You can't say, look, I'm going to rent my home for, and I'm making this up, $2,000 a day, but then you look at the rental in the areas and it's $700 a day, right? There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Because the IRS will come knocking on your door. And so you have to make sure that you have the rental agreement, that you have an analysis that let's just say someone came up with $1,000 and they said it's $800 for the day and $200 cleaning fee. And so now that's a charge to the business. So now that's higher expenses. So that lowers their income. And then you transfer the money, and you have to transfer the money again, as closely as possible to the transaction. So if, for example, if I rented your home and you wouldn't necessarily want me to pay you in December, if I rent your home now, you probably want me to pay you before or right after the transaction. So same thing, money has to flow from the S corp into your individual account. And you do this, it can save you quite a bit of money, right? If you, let's say, do it $1,000 a day, that's 14,000 times your marginal tax rate. It starts adding. So you start stacking these things. Very low hanging fruit, but people have to be able to do it very, very thoughtfully.
Yeah. And the person pay taxes on that income or not?
That's a great thing with the Augusta Rule, is that it's a business expense, but you don't pick up the income on your individual, as long as you do it within the 14 days or less. Because normally, if you make money, you have to report taxes. Right. And this rule came about, I think it was in the 1970s in Augusta, Georgia. People were playing golf, and what they realized is there was a huge influx into this neighborhood, and the people in the community lobbied to Congress and said, hey, we want to rent our home for people who come into this golf tournament. And they were able to kind of talk their way through of saying 14 days is a max, and they don't pick up the income, which is a really great strategy. Again, the very low hanging fruit. If you aren't doing that, you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah. And that's why, there is the wrong idea outside that people say, oh, rich people don't pay taxes. The difference that I see is that they have the information. They don't pay taxes, but they do it the right way, right?
Yeah.
Following the laws.
That's exactly it. And there's a big difference between not being fraudulent and then being smart, using the tax code to your own benefit. And as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of great things that people can do. And being in real estate, another one is a cost segregation study that people are able to do for single family residential units. You can depreciate it straight line over 27 and a half years. And people get into real estate because of that depreciation. The great thing is that if you do a cost segregation study, you're able to accelerate that 27 and a half years much faster in 5, 7, 15-year buckets. And with the bonus depreciation, that through the changes with the administration, you can accelerate it and not take a big deduction up front. And because, like we said, time is money, time value of money. You take that deduction now, that's less money going to the government, that if you're smart about that money, you can make that money work for you.
Yeah. Reinvest.
Reinvest, exactly.
Yeah. And what do you think, or when is the right time for entrepreneurs to start looking into retirement and also legacy?
Good question. And a lot of entrepreneurs, first and foremost, they've kind of bought themselves a job, meaning that without the entrepreneur, the business owner, the business is not going to function, let alone grow. So you have to solve for that need first. And you want to be able to create an asset. A lot of entrepreneurs think, well, hey, I own a business. Eventually, I'm going to be able to sell it. Well, if that business owner is the business and the step away from it, there is no business. There's no cash flow. So you have to professionalize the business. For example, Mel's Builders needs to get to the point where it operates without Mel, right? Mel doesn't have to do anything. Mel
I can be on vacation.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? That's the way it should be. You can be on vacation and it's your company, you're running it, but you don't have to be in it. Now people will pay up for it. If Mel is the company, if Mel then goes on a 6-month vacation, then a lot of things may fall apart. The company's not growing. No one's going to pay for that. So as an entrepreneur, you have to realize that your business is likely to become your biggest asset. So how do you professionalize the business? And then there's accounts that you can benefit from. There are retirement accounts that you can do. If you're a small business owner, if it's just husband and wife, you can open up a solo 401k, which is very easy to administer. Again, you can do it through Schwab, Fidelity, and you can put quite a bit of money in there as well. And that grows for retirement, but also saves you on taxes as well.
And where will you say is or in your opinion or in your experience, what is the best investment that people can do? Real estate, stocks, or build a business?
Easy. Build a business. And so again, me being analytical, right? So if I take a step back, because I got right to the punchline, what you want to be able to do anytime someone puts anything in front of you, if you have money and you're looking to deploy that money, you have to look at what we call opportunity costs. It's just a fancy economic term for where should I put my money? Think of opportunity costs like going to a restaurant, you grab a menu and say that you decide to get the filet mignon. So your opportunity cost is maybe you didn't get the lobster or you didn't get another thing because you can only get one meal. Same thing with your money. If you have 100,000 or 500,000 or 10,000, whatever it is, if that's what you have, if you put it in investment A, you didn't put it in investment B, C, or D. And so what you have to do before you deploy your money is look at the menu of investments, because you name some. Real estate, right? You can do single family residential, you can do commercial real estate, and commercial real estate, all kinds of stuff. You can do office, you can do warehousing, you can do other things. You can get into the stock market. Even in the stock market, there's opportunity cost. There's alternative investments. There's investing in your business, like you said. So you have to look at all of them and say, what is the expected value of each one of these? And then a fancy way is that you then kind of take the present value, but you discount the expected cash flows of those investments to today, and you see which one of these from the menu has the highest net present value, and then that's the one that you would deploy money into. That's what they call capital rationing. So this is a way multi-billion-dollar corporations analyze projects. Should I be deploying, $50 million to this or that or this? Well, they run through these things. And the great thing, again, is that you don't have to know a whole lot of math. You can get these done relatively easy. It's, it sounds fancy. It sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. Now, once you have everything, then you can make your decision. Now, what I will tell you is I can save you some time. Owning your business is probably going to be where you can make the biggest bang for your buck. We live in a period of time now that I don't think people understand, that you can go from not having any money to being a multimillionaire in a very short period of time by selling your business. There will be a point in time where that won't be an option for people. And for me, I don't take that lightly, because there's a chance that when my kids are in their 20s and 30s, they may not have that opportunity of creating a business and in 5-10 years sell it for a lot of money. Right now, you're able to. So it's shame on us for not taking advantage of that opportunity that we have in front of us. But a lot of people just don't see it. And starting a business, you talked about generational wealth, that's where you can get your biggest bang for your money. So you create a business. It has to be a true business. Like I said, if you just bought yourself a job, no one's going to pay for that. So you have to start a business, professionalize the business. When you professionalize the business, you have to be careful too if you're going to exit. I kind of talked about there's strategies for small business owners to minimize taxes. So a lot of people do that. They kind of use their business as their personal expenses too. They put it in there, and that's fine. But when you're getting to the point where maybe I'm looking to sell this in the next 5 years, you have to, when I say professionalize the business, get rid of the personal expenses out of the business, make it seem as much as possible as a true company. And how does it operate without you? And then people are willing to pay a higher multiple of EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation. So you have to also look at what type of industries as well. Certain industries command a higher multiple, other industries don't. So if you're a software company, for example, and you have that recurring revenue, that's the revenue that people want. That's the revenue where Mel's on vacation and that money is just coming like clockwork. It's just coming and coming, and software is one of those where we all understand that. You think about Disney Plus, or you think about Netflix or Amazon Prime, where we pay those subscriptions to them. They love that money because that money is like clockwork, and it's just they're getting it over and over. They don't have to resell us on anything. You do it on a big scale, that's a lot of money. So when you sell a business like that, you'll get a much higher multiple than other businesses where you may not. So if you want to be strategic about it, you have to think about what type of business commands a higher multiple. How do you then professionalize the business? But again, how you have to have an expertise. Everyone wants the quick money, but if they don't have the expertise, it's just not going to work out.
So you will say that there is opportunities everywhere in any industry, but it's just there is a few that they have better ROI.
Yeah, they're absolutely. So there's opportunity in everything. There's people making money in all kinds of stuff. There are multimillionaires in everything. And Rob talks about a client he had a long time ago that became really wealthy with pallets.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so people making a lot of money. Again, it's the action. Taking the action is key. There's plenty of people that have good ideas. They do nothing with it, and they're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And how wealthy families transfer their wealth to the next generation successfully?
Yeah, so it can become challenging if you don't get started right away. So the key is how do you, and we created this concept called pre-family office. So we were working with really high net worth families that already had a lot of money. So when they came to us, we could still help them, but we're somewhat handcuffed. If you get started earlier, you can start creating different mechanisms to be able to transfer that wealth. You have to remember that once you start creating a lot of money, you're starting to run into the estate tax. So if you're a married couple, it's $30 million. After you get past that point, you're going to have to pay very quickly, goes to 40%. It's real money. So there's certain trusts that you can create. You can create, when you talk about trusts, is just a document, right? Maybe I'll take a step back. When you create a living trust is a basic thing that everyone needs to have. So if you have your living trust, what you're able to do in there is you have what you call your grantors, or the people who set up the trust. You have your trustees who manage it, and the beneficiaries who ultimately benefit from the trust. Living trust, you have the grantor, the beneficiary, and the trustee being one and the same. So for example, my trust, my wife and I are created the trust. We're the grantors. We're also the trustees. We manage it, and it's for our benefit. But in there, what we're doing is that we have, if something happens to me, what goes to her. If something happens to her, what goes to me. If something happens to both of us, what goes to the children. We have certain rules that we don't want our kids to get our assets right away because they're still young. Because they're young, we also have other documents in place that show who would be the guardian of the children if something, God forbid, happens to my wife and me at the same time. There's power of attorneys. If, for example, someone doesn't pass away, but they're incapacitated in the hospital, who can make financial decisions for the individual. So these are basic documents that everyone should have, and it avoids probate. So the key is when someone passes away, if you don't have these things in place, or if you don't have the proper accounts, that money then goes to a court. Now, the court takes a long time. There are fees with the court, but it's public matter. Now, when you start having money, guess what? People are going to want it. And so if people realize, I'll use you as an example, hopefully you don't pass away, right? But let's say you pass away and you had $30 million and you didn't have these mechanisms in place. And so what happens at that point is someone might say, oh, wow, a family member, I didn't realize Mel has so much money. Now, I'm just going to say Mel promised me $2 million and there's no record of it. So now they're going to go to the judge, and maybe if they're smart, if they have the right attorneys, and maybe they walk away with some of that money.
So they can get it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, of course, it can get challenged, right? Because the idea would be, especially if it's husband and wife, typically people know that if one spouse passes away, the other spouse. But then you get into situations where there are second marriages and you have children from different marriages and other family members. People they can come after the money. And people that are wealthy don't want people knowing what they have. They're very, very big on privacy. So when they buy real estate, they want to make sure they do it in a way that if you look up the property, you can't tell who owns it. They want to make sure, for different reasons. Obviously, they don't want to get sued, but more importantly, they just want that privacy. And so you have to have all these mechanisms in place. So those are your grantor trust, and you have irrevocable trust, coming back to transfer wealth. If you're starting a business, if you're investing in a business, for example, you think it's going to do really well, you can create irrevocable trusts, and you can purchase the investments in these trusts. So the assets no longer belong to the person that created it, but they control it. And so when they pass away, because they don't physically own it, it's not included in their estate, that big appreciation. So if it's 100 million, but it's out of their estate, they don't have to worry about estate taxes.
Wow. That's the difference, right? When you plan something right from day one.
Yeah.
What do parents teach their kids about money?
The key is to have those discussions about money. And a lot of times in our community, in the Latino community, and my experience is that we didn't really talk about money at the table. And so it's important for children to understand money, and for children to be able to have comfort with money, of how it works, understanding that money's not infinite. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to get in front of children. You have to be able to educate them. And there's a lot of platforms out there. There's a company called Acorns Early that I use for my kids. You can go download it. I think it costs like $5 a month or something. You can pay their allowances through the app. And so if they do their bed, I can give them, okay, here's $1 for every day you do your bed. If you do this, if you do good grades, I can put money in there. And they get an actual ATM card. And so when they go to the store, when I take my kids, a lot of times I'm like, they want the candy. I'm like, okay, well, use your card. And then they think about it. They really do.
I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, they don't want it because they're like, oh, okay, it's my money. When it's mom and dad's money, they don't have that connection.
Right.
So they think money's infinite. So they're like, I want this, I want that, I want that. Once you put it to them, if you want it, you have to use it yourself. Now they're going to think about it.
Wow, that's crazy, yeah? The difference.
Yeah, it's important. And again, just getting kids in, and there are books out there. There are videos out there that parents can view to be able to have these discussions with their children, and showing them discipline is key. Otherwise, coming back to the generational wealth, if you don't teach your kids about money when they're young, they're going to grow up irresponsible, and that hard-earned money that you or whoever the entrepreneur spent, right, their sweat and tears into building the business and creating an asset, will get spent frivolously with that first generation or that second. Statistically, almost all of it is gone by that second or third generation. And, it's sad. It's real money that if you get past those second, third generations, you can create that family wealth. And we talked about trust. There's ways to be able to protect the assets, to be able to have a pool of money that says, okay, we're not going to spend this money or only the income of this money for certain reasons to prevent from someone just spending it.
Yeah. And what will you say are the biggest dangers that families face today?
Dangers in terms of financially. But the biggest danger is not knowing, is not having financial literacy.
Lack of information.
Yeah, lack of information, because you get taken advantage of. There's a lot of people out there, especially on social media, with this infinite banking stuff and buying these things. It sounds great.
Yeah.
The problem is because they don't know, they're falling for this stuff. And again, I talked about opportunity costs. If you buy these, IUL policies, and someone shows you if you put $500 every month into this, you'll have 1 point or whatever million by the time you're 60. You can use that to fund your retirement. It's tax-free, blah, 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 blah. People are like, oh, wow, that's great. But what these insurance people don't show you is that if you had put that same money into an S&P 500 fund, you probably have 2 or 3 times more than that 1 or 2 million that you would have in this stuff. And again, it's lack of information. And so people fall for pretty much, unfortunately, people who are wanting to sell. And the way the industry is set up is that sometimes the people who are selling these insurance products, they're doing it because they collect the commission. They get a big commission off the bat. If you do it the right way, there's not a lot of money if someone doesn't have money. But I've come across people who, they don't even know there's other things. They're brought up like, you got to sell people insurance and they're going to have money if they do it. So they believe it. They're like, okay, this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to get in front of Mel and I'm going to call Mel every single day until he picks up my phone, and I'm going to convince him to get into this IUL because I know it's going to help him. It has a little bit of life insurance and he'll have some money when he retires. And if I don't help him, he's not going to have money. So they believe it. The problem is because they're not educated themselves. They don't realize that, well, if I went to Mel with something else, Mel would be much further along.
Yeah. So how important will you say is life insurance?
Life insurance is important for certain people in a certain stage of life. So if the way to see it is life insurance, you should have life insurance if you have an insurable need. And you should have life insurance for as long as you have that insurable need. The most easy example to look at are children. So if you have children, and let's say that you are the only breadwinner of the family, God forbid something happens to you, then your family doesn't have income. So there is a need for life insurance. You can calculate how much life insurance you should have, but it's only for a period of time. Because if you have, let's say, a 5-year-old, once they're, 20, for example, or 25, they should kind of start being on their own. They should be able to carry themselves, be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So you don't need insurance forever. You need it for a short period of time. So you can buy true insurance. It's called term insurance. You buy it for 15 years, 20 years, and you don't put a lot in monthly or annually, and you can get the proper insurance. So it might be, if you're young, you can get $1 million policy for, I don't know, maybe like $60 a month, like super inexpensive. When you get into these IUL, permanent insurance, people are putting $500 in, and they probably have like $200,000 of life insurance. So they're underinsured, and that investment is subpar to putting it in the stock market. So we always say, buy insurance when you need it. And then that difference between, say, that $500 after putting away monthly and $100 at $400, you can invest that in the market, and you'll be much better off that way.
Yeah, the difference is big, like at the end of the day, right? So the problem is, people fall for this because I've been there, right? These guys, they say, oh, you can make this and that. The problem is the lack of information. They don't have the information. And people sometimes think like if you have a term insurance with, let's say, 20 years, they are not getting that money back after the 20 years, right?
No, they don't get the money back, but because it's pure insurance. Think about a car policy. You buy a car, right? The goal is not to get into an accident. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be saying, oh, I hope I get into an accident so I can get my money's worth. The goal is not to.
Even though I know people that's what they want.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. There are people that that unfortunately do things like that. But that's the key. It's for a period of time, but that's where you're not paying a lot, and it's just to protect yourself.
Yeah. What is the biggest lesson that you learned about finance?
Yeah, and that's a great question. There's so many, and that I think one of the most important things for me, the biggest lesson I would say, is understanding what I'm doing. And it sounds like it's very simple and basic. Oh yeah, of course. Most people get into investments. Most people get into situations that they don't understand. Now, I'm not just talking about the general public. I've been in front of very smart people, people who are very successful, and I start asking them about why they invested in certain things, and they don't know. It was a good story, kind of made sense, but they didn't do things. Like for me, before I get into something, I want to put numbers around it, and I don't want to rely on anyone. So I've spent a lot of time investing in myself. So if someone tells me, hey, Luis, I want you to here's an investment. It's $500,000. Go ahead and put it in this. I know the questions to ask, and I know the opportunity cost, and I can deploy it. Of course, you can hire people. You can hire me, my team. We can do that for you. But I would say for me, even when I hire people, when it comes to money, I really want to understand it so I can make a decision. At the end of the day, we say that no one's going to care more about your money than you. And so it's your responsibility as the CEO of your family to understand what you're doing.
What is the best investment that you have ever done?
Best investment that I've ever have done. Yeah, I would say investing in myself. I would say investing in myself is the best investment that I've done, because that's opened up so many doors. So when you're young, what you don't have is experience, and you don't have a network. And when you don't have that, it's hard to break into, because these ultra high net worth families, they don't want to work with anyone. It's very hard to break into it. And so you have to know someone who's already in the group, or you have to be able to bring a skill set to the table that people can see and say, okay, wow, this guy knows something that I can use if I'm one of the ultra high net worth families. So investing in yourself is probably the most important thing. Of course, there's investments in there. I mean, we all kind of, you have those stories. We got into NVIDIA. NVIDIA's done extremely well. There's, things I trade some as well. So there are situations where I've done extremely well. There are situations where it hasn't gone that great, but I have my plan. I have my long-term investments. I know exactly what I need to get every single year to get me to that work optional phase, which for me, I'm trying to get there in 3 to 5 years, just to be able to be work optional. So I know exactly what needs to happen. I know how my business plays into it. And then of course I have that play money where I'm going in there and trading some of these securities that I've done really well. I mean, there are stocks that I've traded, I've done a few 100% in a short period of time, but I wouldn't say that that's for everyone, because again, I know the risk I'm taking, and I have other investments that if I say I invest $25,000 in something and it doesn't work out, well, I don't care. I knew the risk I was taking, but that could be someone's $25,000 that's all they had. And so that's why I'm very careful when I talk about investments, because I don't know who's listening. Last thing we want is for someone to just take this, which of course this is not advice, but they can listen and say, well, let me try this. And then it's not, if you don't know what you're doing again, not going to work out.
Yeah, and just go and look for more information too, because with this idea that you're sharing, it's easy for them to go on Google or AI and try to find more information. Because what I will say is investing in yourself, the key is to be ready, right? To have the knowledge, because opportunities are always there. But if you're ready when the opportunity will come, you will, let's say, get on the bus and go, right? But if you're not ready, then it's just gonna go away and it probably will never come back.
Yeah, no, I agree. So again, you have to have a plan. You have to know what you're doing. Kind of coming back to the ADU that we created in my backyard, when we were designing the ADU and we were putting this together, I knew from the beginning, I'm not looking to rent this. So I know I'm going to spend probably more than most people would spend in their ADU, because it's a space for me. That's where I do my business there. It's also for my family. So I analyze the situation. I see people out there and they look at the ADUs and they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know how much they're going to rent it for. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know how much it's going to add value to the property. So you have to understand it. And so for me with that ADU, it was, there's things in there that if someone's renting it, like there were like, well, you wasted money. I have a stairwell that kind of, twirls up. There's that deck on top.
Yeah.
There's the door that opens completely. Well, if I were going to rent that to a tenant, I'm not going to give them those luxuries.
Right.
I'm not going to spend on that. But because it's for me and for my family, I want that. That's something that my wife and I decided and said, yeah, we know it's not going to be cheap. And because we want it custom, we have to go to someone who's experienced, who can deliver on and be able to help us, which you did quite a bit. We had the plan designs and you kind of help us. Like I still remember where we had some windows, so we had high ceilings, and then we talked about some of the windows. You probably want them higher because the ceiling's higher is just not going to look good. So again, we came to you for that, right? And when people come to us for Valtreon for experience, they want us to think about things that they're not thinking about. That's why they're paying. And so when we worked with you, we relied heavily on you to help us on that piece.
Yeah, because most of the people, regular door are 80 inches, right? And and that's because you have 8-foot ceilings. But when you have 10 or 9, 10 or plus, it's better to go with higher doors. Then your space is gonna feel bigger. And your living room is vaulted ceiling. You have windows even on top of the small roof that we did, so the water will not go into the house when the door is open. So you still get more natural, because all the guys that work there were like, wow, feels so big, even though you under 5 or
just a little under 5.
Under 5, right? It's crazy. You have it feels big because of that, the open space. Yeah, that's what it's all about. What will be your message for our people, for, let's say, contractors or whoever is watching this podcast right now? What would you say to them?
Yeah, the key is you have to be optimistic. The key is you have to figure out, what do you do better than everyone else? If you're a general contractor, for example, you have to realize, okay, sometimes people are like, they're proud. They've got general contractor license and they think they made it. I'm like, well, there's a sea of general contractors. Yeah. How do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? How do you create a brand for yourself? Brand is key, because that's going to set you apart from everyone else. So what I would say to those who are listening, you got to invest in yourself. Kind of coming back to those points that we started with, you got to invest in yourself. You have to have a plan, and you have to be able to take action. And more importantly, you have to love what you do, and you have to play in a space that you have a competitive advantage. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging to win.
I agree. Luis, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all that knowledge to our community. It's a pleasure. And hopefully we can have you on another time here to share more about the financials.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here, Mel. I'm glad to help the community, the people listening. There's a lot more that we can cover. I know there's only so much we can do in a short period of time, but again, being financial literate is extremely important.
Guys, thank you for always being there, for the support. And remember, you can follow at Manny Luis,
at Manny
Luis G on social media. And he always drop a lot of knowledge there. So until next time.